Okay, couple of housekeeping things. If you have not already done so, if you would please subscribe. It totally helps channels like mine out. I am so close to 1,000, you guys, which is a huge feat that I honestly never really thought I would make, but we're so close. So I am so thankful to those of you who have already subscribed and who watch and comment and all of those things. It just makes this kind of even more worthwhile. So definitely thank you for that. Another thing is my husband probably will be coming home any minute, and so if he comes in abruptly, I'm sorry. And lastly, we have a puppy that we got for Christmas. I'll link the video. And she's a little bit naughty and a little bit loud. So if you hear her chewing on something or barking or something, I'm once again very sorry. So let's get into it. Right now she's actually at the door. Even though I've taken her out a bunch of times. Yeah. Let's get started, shall we? I do have my notes that I will be referring to periodically. I definitely don't want this video to be too long, and I tend to get a little bit rambly. So I wrote down a few things. Hopefully that will keep me on track and keep my answers shorter. So we're gonna start with what I think is going well. And right off the bat, we're just gonna hit it hard with math. And surprisingly, that is something that I feel like is going pretty well. At least as my 2 older boys are concerned, but really all 3 of the kids that are in formal school. My 2 older boys are doing Nicole the math lady. One is in 3rd grade and one is in 5th grade. And she uses Saxon curriculum. She teaches the lessons and then they do the work. Sorry, I actually do have a video coming out about this next week. I'm super excited to share more in depth, but right now you can know that that is something that I think has really transformed our homeschool a little bit this year, at least as far as I am concerned, because it does free me up. Instead of spending, you know, around an hour teaching a math lesson and then helping them get started with their work per boy, you know, so 40 minutes to an hour with one kid and then go around and do it again with the 3rd grader and then also the 1st grader. That really frees up 2 hours out of my day that I can then order our day just a little bit differently. So on my end of things, it is great. Now, is it my son's favorite thing in the whole world to do? Not necessarily. Saxon can get long. It is tedious. One way that we combat this, at least for my older kiddo, is that I go through and I take away part of the problems that he has to do. He does have to do the majority of the lesson practice, if not all of it, which that just means that basically he's answering questions based on the lesson he has just learned. But after that, there is another section of problems called mixed practice, because just in case you don't know, Saxon is a spiral curriculum, so it goes back over things that they've learned previously. So that mixed practice is where, hold on. Okay, she was chewing on some clothing. Now she's just gonna be loud with a little chew toy. I'm sorry, I'll try to take out as much of this as I can. Where was I? So Saxon is a spiral curriculum, and so I do go through in that mixed practice for my 5th grader who is doing Saxon 6-5, and I eliminate part of the problems. I used to tell him just to do the odds or only the evens, and that is one way to do it, but now I go through and think, okay, where does he need to work? What does he need to work on? And I circle those problems, and then things that he either has down already or he's been working on that a lot in the past, we're gonna give him a break for a minute, I leave those out. So for the most part, for me personally, I have really enjoyed using and utilizing Nicole the math lady. The cons to this are, and I'm gonna talk about this, like I said, more in depth in that video next week, is that I don't necessarily know exactly what they're learning day in and day out. Could I sit there and watch it with them? Yes. Could I buy the teacher's guide? And honestly, Saxon, anything above 3rd grade, so 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and on up, their books are made for the student to read and teach themselves. And so I do have technically the teacher's guide for my older kiddo, but I don't for the 3rd grader. So I could do more and know more if I wanted to. It doesn't bother me that I don't really know what's going on very much. With the 5th grader, I can look at his lesson anyway and kind of figure out if he's having trouble, how I can help him. With the 3rd grader, I've taught Saxon before in a public school setting, and I can look and kind of figure that out. I don't necessarily need a teacher's manual for him. So if you are a person that does like to know exactly what your kid is learning on what day, then there are ways around it. That has nothing to do with Nicole the math lady. It's just what it allows me to do, which is kind of set that one and let somebody else take it over, which is fine by me. So yeah, and other than that, the other thing you need to know is that Nicole is a wonderful teacher. I love that they're getting quality teaching too, as well. That is in-depth, it's a real person, all of these things. So it's great. I really, really enjoy this resource. Okay, we're gonna move on to, I guess we'll do my 1st grader's math, which for her, I chose BJU for their main core math, which that's been great. I've got one other BJU thing I'm gonna talk about, and you're gonna hear me say this then as well. What I feel like BJU does really well is they thread the needle of just the right amount of work, just the right amount of rigor. It's rigorous without being so hard and so tedious that it becomes cumbersome. They have just the right amount of problems. They teach it very, very well. It moves at a good pace, all of these things. So I do feel like that curriculum does a very good job of that. It's not too wordy. It's not obscure. It's really good. So that is what I chose for her for her math. I did not buy the teacher's manual. Once again, I've taught 1st grade math a lot, so don't necessarily need it. And so that is what we are using. It's great, it's colorful, it's fun. It does spiral some, definitely teaches things rigorously without being too hard and overcomplicating things. Along with that, I do have her do a little bit of the sections from Right Start Math. I have a video that I will link up here that shows you and walks you through why I chose that, but that also is going well. She definitely can look at her facts and know what they are without having to necessarily count on her fingers or anything like that for addition facts. So I'm really grateful for that. That is not something I am very good at all. It is something I've always struggled with for as long as I can remember. And so for her to be able to do that well is a huge load off my mind. So those things are going well. I feel like we have done an okay job on math this year, which that's exciting to me, because I feel like that's something that everybody's always searching for what to do. Okay, let me see what else is going well. BJU writing and grammar, that is what I am using for my 5th grader. That is going actually very well. Like I said, I was gonna tell you again, I feel like BJU threads the needle just right, of just the right amount of work, just the right amount of words to teach a lesson and everything in between. I really like this grammar and this writing. It is thorough without, once again, being cumbersome or having too many problems, which is a problem I feel like with Saxon. So, perfect amount of information. They do that really well. I do like how this curriculum has part of it is grammar, and then they'll work on writing, and then they'll go back to grammar, and then they'll work on writing. So you don't really get bored with doing one or the other. Okay, all about reading. My 1st grader is doing great. We are on level 2. She is flying through it. She's a fantastic reader. I love their games. I love the way they teach concepts. there are just a few things as a former first grade teacher that taught kids how to read that I would tweak a little bit, but not enough really here to mention because I think I'm just being nitpicky. I will say the one thing that I do find cumbersome in that curriculum is the fluency sheets are very long and you will get to failure, I feel like. So what we end up doing is I say, okay, there's usually this dog. Come here, Mabel. She's stuck behind the couch. The fluency sheets will usually have 4 sections. So if it's new words, it'll have 4 sections of new words, 4 sections of phrases, sentences, so on. I usually tell her to pick 2. And if she does all those I usually say all of them correctly, but if she does them well and tries, then she doesn't have to do the other ones. So that's how we cut down on that. Their stories can also be a little bit lengthy, but I appreciate how well written they are and how they build upon themselves and build upon each other. So, they do have amazing, amazing games too. I love that she is not writing down anything for her reading curriculum. She is 100% just playing games and learning, and it's fantastic. CLE reading, I've talked about this before. It's going well for both boys. Not necessarily their very favorite thing to do, but it definitely goes through and makes them practice and learn skills that I would not necessarily have thought of to teach them as a homeschool mom. They would be things that they would be learning in a public school, especially one that is in a state that is very heavily standardized, like the one we live in. You guys, come here. No. So certain things like inference and ABC order and abbreviations and all of these different things, vocabulary words, and putting them into a sentence and, you know, developing understanding, looking them up. What else was the one thing that we went through with my 5th grader that I was like, oh man, that is something that is really, really good to know. You do need to know how to do that. It wasn't sequencing, but just trying to think of different things. I will say that the lessons can be a little long and the stories can be a little long. And so it is definitely something that could become cumbersome if you have kiddos that just want to go out and play and are kind of reluctant to sit there and do a reading activity. So as far as subjects go, those are the things I feel like we have a pretty good handle on. I'm really enjoying, I'm okay with the choice that I made and incorporating those this year. I also feel like that's really the core of our individual subjects, and in that area I feel like we do a good job in making sure that gets done. That does get done every single day. I can chug that train and I know how to do it, and it's somewhat easy for me to kind of delegate and have things going. Now, it's not always perfect. Do I get overwhelmed? Yes, I do. All of those things, but that is where I feel like it's not as much of a struggle for me. I can be consistent with those things because it's kind of just turn to the next page and do it. And I can teach you how to do it. I can help you do it. I don't know if this is because I was a former teacher or just the way I'm wired, but that kind of is on autopilot for me. I know how to do that. I don't struggle with that. Where I do struggle with creativity side and having these new activities and stuff like that, that's a little bit harder. So individual subject wise, I do feel like that does not stress me as much as other areas of homeschooling does. So that is what I feel like is going well. You guys, I'm really sorry about the puppy. Those are the areas I feel like are going well. All right, you guys, despite my best efforts, I got chatty. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the video off here with just telling you what has worked well for us this year. Be sure to come back for part 2 where I outline what has not worked or what I want to do better at. So that is going to be coming up very, very soon in part 2.